Welcome to the Real Life Podcast at Hermitage Hills, where we have real honest conversations with real people about topics relevant for today. At Hermitage Hills, we desire to see people experience life change through Jesus Christ. For more information about our church and how you can be a part of the community here, visit hermitagehills.com/connect.
Hey, great to see you on this episode of Real Life here from Hermitage Hills. And we just take real people with real stories that make a real impact. And so thank you so much for chiming in today with us on this episode of Real Life. Today I have with me a friend and a brother, part of our church here at Hermitage Hills, Tim Tant. And Tim, thanks for joining with me today on this podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So tell me, coming in, you went, I listen to a lot of podcasts, but I've never been on a podcast.
I do. This is a significant life event for me. I can't tell you countless times I've been on the other side of the camera, the microphone, watching this situation.
Yes.
Microphones just like these, and it's surreal to be invited to be a part of one.
Here you are at the table.
Yeah.
Never thought you'd be there, but here you are. So anyway, as we talk about real life, we just take different stories from different people. And I thought of you and your family in the midst of a COVID world. Young families, you know, my kids have grown and gone, you know, so my situation with COVID really didn't impact me in many ways. It did young families that we're going to talk about. So, but before we dive into that, I want to just take some moment. Tim Tant, who is Tim Tant? Where are you from? Where'd you grow up?
Yeah.
Tell us about your family. Give us some just 30,000 foot perspective of the Tant home.
Yeah, sure. So I'm a Nashville native. Grew up here in Nashville, over in Inglewood. So
Okay.
Greater East Nashville, within the Greater Nashville, and until I was about 12, and then we moved down to Williamson County, and I graduated from high school in Franklin High School in 2008.
Okay.
And after that, I spent a few years in the Army, and those 5 years in the Army was the only time I've ever lived outside of Nashville. So I say I've lived in Nashville my whole life because that was kind of an exception, and came back, met my wife, we got married, and now we live right across the street from the church in the Bonas neighborhood.
Yeah.
Now we're a very young family, growing family with 2 kids on the way.
How old are your kids?
Miriam is the oldest. She will be 3 in June. Leia had just turned 1 in March. So
Wow.
two daughters,
Young,
3 and 1.
Young kids in a COVID world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wife. How long have you been in the Bonas?
Oh, about 5 years.
Okay.
I think so.
Okay.
I would think about 5 years. Yeah, we really loved it. We really loved it. Not passing. We're still there now.
You're
Loved
there.
it. Yeah.
All right. So before March of 19,
Yep.
the average Tant family household, how was that working pre-COVID for you guys?
So, like you talked about, we're a young family, so our kids are very young, so our family's really just starting. And I imagine our weekly routine probably looks pretty similar to most people pre-COVID. I work full-time at HCA, and Emma worked full-time at HCA when we met. She now stays at home, takes care of our kids. But prior to that, you know, we went to church Sunday morning in person for life groups, in person for worship, which it's weird to even emphasize like the in-person part.
Yeah.
like that's ever been a significant factor.
Yeah.
And then I worked Monday through Friday for HCA at one of our offices over by the airport, which we'll talk more about what's going on with that office, and commuted 30 minutes, probably left around 7:45, and then came home left for home around between 4 and 5.
Yeah.
Came home, evenings were pretty normal. Wednesday nights in person for church activities, classes I really enjoy, and then you know, weekends were just filled with family and friends and going out to eat and taking weekend trips and pretty much just what everybody did.
Yeah. Out in the real world doing real things.
Yep.
So all of a sudden, shutdown happens and COVID hits, and we're not going to speak so much into right or wrong about those kind of things. It was reality.
Yeah.
Church, was asked to not meet for a period of time, and on a couple of occasions, and so forth and so on. So when COVID hit a young family, with your schedule like it was, shutdown happens.
Yeah.
How did that hit you guys?
So I think our experience with the shutdown is unique for a couple of reasons. So Leia, who's our youngest, she turned 1 back in March, was born Sunday, March 8th. And I will always remember this because it was kind of marked by Leia's birth. So she was born Sunday, March 8th, which was the week that the lockdowns really started. So
wow.
At that point, like, we knew COVID was going on, and I think, they had patient 0 in Tennessee, if that's the language that we use or whatever it is. But it was really kind of unsure of like the direction that it was going to go. So Leia was born here at our hospital in Hermitage, and while we go to the hospital Sunday afternoon after church, they're starting to set up checkpoints in and out of the building. Nothing dramatic, but they were starting to, have you traveled overseas? Have you had a fever recently?
Right.
Nothing really crazily concerning at that point. And we were allowed to have guests. We were allowed that, so that was significant. And then we were in the hospital probably just 24 hours. Leia's birth was pretty smooth, and we wanted to get out of there on Monday, and we were. And going into that week is really when things started to get weird. Like something's different. This, we've never experienced it before. So I actually had an appointment, I think Wednesday or Thursday, at Tire Discounters to go get some tires replaced on our van. I had an appointment, and I'd started paternity leave 3 weeks from work, which I appreciated. And I go to Tire Discounters, and they had sent everyone home. And I was just like, what? Like, I've got this appointment. I showed up. There was like one person at the counter. They had moved tires in front of the counter, which may even still be there.
Yes.
So that you can't.
Yeah, distance.
The distance.
Yeah.
So I show up, and I said, hey, I've got an appointment. Their bays were closed. And I said, oh, sorry, we've sent everyone home. And I had started to hear that other places were doing this on the radio, but it really still was surreal. Like, we always hear about things like that going on in the world, but I show up and I can't get my car done or my tires done because they sent everyone home. And that's when it was just like, okay, this is really getting odd.
Something is shifting here.
Yeah.
So new baby.
Yeah.
And I'm sure with a new baby, there's some expectations of get-togethers and gatherings and bringing the baby home and all that. How did that work for you guys?
So we were blessed in that, like I mentioned, we still got visitors in the hospital. So Sunday night, we were able to have some of our immediate family come by. But there were close family members that we went for, and friends especially, that we went for months without meeting Leia.
Yeah.
Which, I'm talking about family that lives here in Middle Tennessee. And it was kind of like a 1 week at a time. And it was like, do you realize Leia's been part of our family for 6 weeks, and we haven't seen, my grandmother.
Right.
It was nothing that hit us overnight. It's just, you realize that, okay, we're going to do these one thing at a time. And then time starts going by, and you look back, and it's like, whoa, what's going on here?
And when you look back, what did you feel like, or did it impact you at all when you look back and think about what you would have done versus what you were able to do?
When I look back, I think around the immediate time of Leia's birth, and the first time I ever went to the grocery store wearing a mask, and I was kind of looking back, and it was still, I don't want to say this, be insensitive about it, but at that point it was almost neat. Because I had no idea this was going to go on for a year, and this was going to have these political ramifications and impact our church family. But I remember going to Kroger, and I was like, okay, I guess I should probably put a mask on. And I took a selfie outside of Kroger with my mask on, because I was like, I want to remember this. The first time in my life that I go to the grocery store with a mask on, snap the selfie. Now I don't really care to remember that too much.
Right.
I'm over it.
Over the mask thing.
Yeah. But so I look back on those 6 weeks in one perspective, and now I look back, and at the time it was something neat that we would get through. Now I look back, and it's really a whole new perspective of looking back on a challenge. And
do y'all look back at all now and feel like you missed anything because of that restrictiveness, being with family or friends, or are you going, no, it was all okay?
Yeah, we definitely missed. We definitely missed out on things. I just missed, the in-person interactions with coworkers, the in-person actions with our life group, and being in person for worship. I'm not sure, which has definitely had an impact on my life. I'm not sure if I can look back and identify a significant life event that I had missed. Like some people have. I mean, funerals.
So about the year later birthday, how did that work?
For Leah?
Yeah.
We had
things lighten up enough to do something, or?
Yeah, we did. We did a small little birthday at our house, but we just kind of kept it small. And some of that may have been COVID concerns because it was March, which is recent, but I guess things were just maybe starting to lighten up at that point.
Right.
Vaccine was starting to roll out.
Right.
I don't know how much of that was our just personal preference in terms of just wanting to do something small with our immediate family than it was COVID influenced. One big observation looking back is the way that Leia has grown up. So Leia is very young. She's just 1, but she has known nothing outside of the COVID lockdown.
People with masks on.
Right. Yeah. And, well, Miriam too, she's just 3, but so that, a significant portion of her life, she doesn't even ask. We get out of our car, put our mask on. It doesn't faze her. But Leia has grown up.
Versus someone like me, I have to constantly remind myself.
Yeah.
All the time, to put that mask on. Or someone goes, psst, Pastor, you need to put your mask on.
Yeah.
Going, oh, yeah, you're right. I'm reaching for them. I'm trying to find one somewhere, yeah.
But Leia has grown up. Obviously, she's not aware of the environment she's growing up in, but she's seen far fewer people than, Miriam did growing up. She's 3, than in her time that she has grown up.
Right.
She's much more attached to, I think, her mother than what, of course, all babies are. But I think that has been amplified for Leia because the amount of people that have come in and out of Leia's life is much more concentrated. Therefore, her attachments are much stronger.
So tell me this. When you, as a young family, of course, let's talk about your job a little bit. We shared a little bit about
changes.
that. So that's a whole nother world now for you guys.
Kind of going back to the beginning of COVID, so I was on 3 weeks of paternity leave.
Yeah.
And that paternity leave started Sunday of the week of lockdowns. And I had no idea that when I went home on paternity leave that I would never return to the office in my current role. Not all of my company is remote, but my department is, and they've made the decision to go permanently remote. So I remember being on 3 weeks, calling one of my cohorts back at the office and say, hey, what's been going on? And it was major. Contractors, everyone was cut. HCA did a good job of, I don't think they made any layoffs in terms of full-time employees, but everybody that was 1099 or not directly employed by HCA was immediately let go. Any type of contract labor, all that stuff that maybe they would consider extra or not immediately dependent on the business needs. And it was just like, whoa, okay. By this point, the weirdness, the oddness of the situation was really snowballing. And then we made the decision that my department would not return to the office. HCA made an investment in technology that called these devices called Arubas, which extends the HCA network from home. We were able to do that, and they stuck a for sale sign in the building and sold it. I mean, they made the decision hard that we're going down this
place
strategy.
you left for leave thinking you'd come back to. Never went back to.
Never went back to. I went back once, maybe twice, to kind of pick up,
get some pictures.
Some of my stuff at my desk that I had expected to return to.
So you've been working from home, which a lot of people have been.
Yeah.
But with the building being sold, your department is like permanently.
Yeah.
This is the mode that the company and you guys have chosen to move into. So how has that been?
It's been a blessing. I don't like working from home, and I had some options to work from home at least a few days a week before, and I never really took advantage of it.
Why?
Because I like being face to face with the people I work with. It's just my personality type. Those interactions are important to me. It's just my personality.
I get that.
So working from home was never something I really chose, but I was forced to do it.
Right.
And when I look back on that, so back to your question about, what do I look at when I look back on, it has been a tremendous blessing for me and my family. It's provided some challenges at work, and it's provided some challenges for the family too. But I got to see more of Leia's first year of her life. I mean, I'm sure there's calculations out there when how much time you spend working versus how much time you spend at home versus sleeping. Well, I was able to see my kids a lot more, and now my kids are totally adjusted. And I'll tell you something funny about this too, to my presence at the house. And I work down in the basement. I'm fortunate to have a good space for that. And not everybody does. I was able to convert a spot in my basement to kind of my office and shut the door. And the kids generally don't bother me down there. And I get to pop up and see them whenever I want to. I'll be on a long meeting and I'll get to pop up and play with my daughters for 10 minutes, which is not something I was able to do before. But when I first started working from home, I had to figure out how am I going to adjust this with my children. So what I would do is we have a one-story ranch house that's got a basement on the bottom, a finished basement. And I would leave out the front door like I always do. I'd say, bye, all right, I'll see you guys tonight. I would walk out the front door, walk around the house, and come in the basement.
So the drive to work down 40 is no longer, it's walking around.
It's just walking around my house. That was my commute.
The back door, the basement door.
And I would stay.
Now, how long did it take before they caught on to that?
Maybe a month.
Oh yeah?
I would stay down there airtight until they went down for their naps. And then I would come upstairs, make my lunch, retreat back to the basement. Now they know I'm down there. It's no big deal. They don't usually try to come see me because they just are accustomed to this environment. Daddy goes downstairs, the door shuts, and they're with mom upstairs.
Right. Yeah, like normal. So tell me, I don't want you to speak for other people, but I'm sure your coworkers and so forth, you have been blessed. I mean, that was a neat scenario for you, but not all young families face that.
Yeah.
I mean, I've talked to some other guys in our fellowship, where wife was off at her job and they're at home. They trade off between, and some had school. They're trying to do work. They're trying to help their kids Zoom the school, which is, I can't imagine. My kids are grown. I can't imagine being in that kind of world. Do you have coworkers struggle with those kind of things?
Absolutely. And coworkers and friends. Fortunately, I had a space, number one, that I could set up as my office.
Right.
We just converted a corner of my basement. It's a finished basement, so it's just a room. But not everyone was able to do that. And they're on meetings where their kids are screaming, and you can still hear my kids upstairs when they're screaming. It gets picked up on my headset. But we didn't have to.
Is everybody okay over there?
Yeah. We didn't have to navigate Zoom school for our children. Our kids are
younger, sure.
And my heart goes out to those that have had to do that, because that adds a layer of complexity that I can't even imagine.
I can't either. I can't imagine. I know one of our guys I talked to, he went to the whole airplane headset microphone mode.
Yep.
Because the kids, in his situation were just right around the corner, and he just couldn't focus or concentrate, and I just had to shut it down for a little bit to be able to get things done. It's been quite a ride for a lot of people.
Yeah, it really is.
For sure. So tell me, when you think back over the past year, young family facing COVID world, what were some of the negatives? Did you come up with some negatives that y'all faced?
So there were new decisions that we had to make, especially as a family, what we could do and what we couldn't go do. And everybody was making these decisions, including the government, because it was unexpected. The science was coming in almost day to day, especially in the early stages.
Still is.
Yep, still is. Who this affects, how stringently we should lock down.
Right.
So there were decisions that we had to make, or just things that wouldn't be major, like there was a time I wanted to go take Miriam to the trampoline park.
Right.
Well, Emma wasn't really comfortable with that. Which I understand, but that's, we're a single family unit. We're one flesh, but we are still two unique people that have to make these decisions that we may not always be on the same page on. I can't stand being stuck at home. We've had snow days before, and after 24 hours, I'm like, I need to go get a pizza from Walmart or something like that. And I'm trying to get out of the driveway. At the time, I had a Honda Accord, and I was spinning out in the driveway because I get tired.
Go.
And Emma, my wife, she's has no problem. I don't want to say has no problem, but she can tolerate it for much longer stints of time.
Is she more of an introvert?
Yeah.
Kind of person,
which
is fine.
Yeah.
God makes all kinds. So I've talked to so many of those who love the pandemic.
Yeah.
Going, nobody's trying to hug me. Nobody's trying. I can stay at home and be in my own world and do my own thing. I love this pandemic for that person.
But we both had to make compromising decisions there. That was one example where I wanted to get out and take Miriam to go do something one Saturday morning. And Emma was a little bit more hesitant. I don't remember. That was much further along in the pandemic, but
that makes sense. So let's dig a little deeper there, because I think it's a great word for young families who are still trying to figure that out. Because for like Julie and I, my wife and I, and when it comes to the vaccine, she's a little more cautious than I am.
Yeah.
It's just because it's not so much, I'm not trying to make it a right and wrong scenario. It's levered of comfort. Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay, flu shot, COVID shot. Maybe I'm just not as smart as some, but I'm going okay. And she's going, oh, I don't know about that. Hadn't been out very long, hasn't been tested very much, And that's her personality. So we're trying to figure that whole thing out. Like I think what you alluded to, you're all trying to figure out comfort levels. So how have you walked that rope together?
One day at a time is the first thing that comes to my mind. But I just, when those situations arose, like that one specific example, which is that it comes to mind over what would have been many instances, there were compromises that she made, there were compromises that I made, and we just have to remember to love each other and be respectful of those decisions. And she's my wife, and I love her, and she loves me, and we both love our children. And it's obviously it's not that she wanted to keep me and Miriam from going to the trampoline park and have fun. It's that there was a real risk out there that she was assessing and and with the concern of our children. So as disappointing as that was, as frustrating as that may have been in that moment, I just have to remember to ground myself in that this person is making a judgment based on love, and I need to respond to that judgment in love. And I think that example of just my wife and I having a conversation about trying to go to the trampoline park and maybe being on slightly different pages is amplified perhaps infinitely, because that kind of situation, we ran into situations like that we can talk about with extended family, wanting to do certain things, and maybe we were on different pages. Then you've got families in our neighborhood that are making opposing, and then you've got families in our church that are making different decisions. And it was just this, these tiers of decision making that we've had to navigate as a world.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Real Life, a ministry of Hermitage Hills. If you'd like to be a part of a community seeking to follow Jesus and experience life change, visit us at hermitagehills.com/connect. You'll also find ways to ask for prayer and how to take the next steps in your faith journey. We'd love to partner with you as you grow in your faith and experience real life.